about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. Well, I mean, it pains me to see this, but you all are seeing what we doctors have seen for years in terms of the extent of some of the mental illness and sick behavior of people. Now, and when I was going through school, one thing they told us is we are going to shed our naivety faster than many of us shed our virginities, because when you see what some people are capable of doing and their illogical mental illness and what their reasoning is, and you see a lot of the evil, that it really changes your perception on the human psyche and on how humans interact and even your own safety. And doctors suffer from a lot of anxiety and depression. And for us, we were trained really well, where we built a lot of resilience. And one thing I credit is our dean was actually a psychologist and psychiatrist by profession. So we were pretty luckily trained on how to see this and approach this. But people watching the Charlie Kirk get murdered, this Joshua John shooting at an ICE facility, killing a migrant and injuring multiple others, the Minneapolis church shooter, that we have some real sick individuals. And I hate the fact that you all are seeing what we doctors have seen and known for years, but I think people do need to be aware that we are surrounded by real disgusting individuals. We're finding out more about this gunman who did commit the shooting spree on the ICE facility in Dallas yesterday morning, killing a migrant and injuring others. Apparently, Joshua John, the 29-year-old, conducted multiple searches of ballistics and was fascinated by the Charlie Kirk assassination video. This was during the 48 hours before yesterday's incident. He was very obsessed. And he also left a handwritten note that said, hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with AP rounds on that roof? AP meaning armor-piercing rounds on that roof. I mean, he was just fantasizing about killing people, and people wondering, his capabilities. And you just wonder what this guy's thinking was, and how did he make it to the age of 29? But without anybody noticing that this guy was a real messed up individual. He also had searched for apps that track ICE agents for a week before he launched his attack. Now, this is according to the FBI, and we're getting more information. Fox News is reporting, Daily Mail. I mean, all the multiple news agencies are reporting as we get more information. But Kash Patel said further accumulated evidence to this point indicates a high degree of pre-attack planning. Now, he was searching for apps that would dox ICE agents or show their locations. This is why the rhetoric from the left needs to stop. When we have people who are working with law enforcement and trying to secure our borders and trying to remove criminals from this country, and those who are MS-13 gang members and cartel members and sex traffickers and rapists and murderers, they to this rhetoric like we see from Gavin Newsom and everybody else, where, well, these individuals are bad, they're Nazis, they're fascists, you're brewing a group of individuals that don't necessarily have it all together, that feel that any attempt to stop these individuals or kill them is a good thing, is for the cause. And I don't understand why every single public official and every single legislature, even Gavin Newsom, isn't getting on a microphone and getting in front of a camera saying, no, this stops now. Migrants are being killed because of all the rhetoric. And migrants are in a very vulnerable position if they are, being, especially one who is detained, if they are found to be here illegally or have criminal backgrounds. They can't run and hide. And this Joshua John was fantasizing about what ICE agents would think and terrorizing ICE agents. Real piece of work. He turned the gun on himself, killed himself, but authorities found bullets that were labeled anti-ICE. And so we're going to learn more about this guy in the coming days and weeks, but it's frustrating to me that we have a system. Look, I don't mind us being politically divided. That's what America's all about. We're not all supposed to be robots thinking the same thing. We're not communists. We're not under fascist rule. We should be having a diversity of ideas. But what we should not have is Gavin Newsom, California governor, telling ICE agents to unmask themselves. What are you hiding? Making them sound like they're evil people when they're supposed to be doing the job that the Constitution demands they do. You go to Canada, you can't be there illegally. You can't, cross the border illegally without getting deported. I mean, every country has rules and laws against illegal immigration. Yet in America, ICE agents are supposed to be targeted. Are you kidding me? Apparently this John guy, this Joshua John, had been arrested back in 2015. He was hit with felony charges for delivering marijuana. He was a registered independent in the 2024 election, but voted in the Democratic primaries in 2020. As we learn more, we'll definitely convey that to y'all. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So for years, we doctors have been fielding questions from patients, from pregnant moms, from public officials. What is the best way to manage a child, whether they're healthy, whether they're unhealthy, whether they can't get vaccinated, whether they can't get vaccinated, and questions such as, why is my newborn needing to get a hepatitis B vaccine at 1 day old? Now, why are we giving COVID vaccines to 6-month-old healthy babies? Why are we giving them blanketly to pregnant people? Or should we reevaluate? But, we doctors are given guidance by the CDC. Like, for example, I get asked this all the time, why are we giving hepatitis B vaccines at 1 day old? Well, the reason why is if we feel the baby got hepatitis B from their mom, the earlier you can induce protection and immunity, the better, because the hepatitis B vaccine is extremely effective in terms of preventing chronic liver disease, cancer from hepatitis, etc. However, the baby's immune system is very young and very immature. We have a lot of parents saying, don't be giving my baby anything. They just got into this world. Can we wait and give the vaccine later? I vaccinated I made sure my kids got all the vaccinations, but I was originally going to hold off on the hepatitis B vaccine until my child came home from daycare with somebody who bit a child that bit his arm, broke skin. And I'm like, wait, if that kid had hepatitis, he could have given my kid hepatitis. And so the protection against infectious and communicable diseases, is paramount, even in the younger in the younger population. But that goes without saying. We have a lot of parents saying, come on, really, 1 day old? Well, the reason why is the hepatitis series, you give one shot and then 2 months later the second shot, then 6 months later the third shot. So, but parents, doctors, public officials are grappling with what we've been doing up until now. Is that the safest and the healthiest? Now, doctors are mixed. There's a lot of doctor groups that are speaking out against RFK Jr. They dislike him. We understand a lot of these doctor groups are more liberal leaning. And their thinking is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Whatever we've done in the Biden administration, the previous Trump administration, the previous Obama administration, if it works, let's keep going. We don't have polio coming back. We don't have tetanus. We don't have a lot of hepatitis in kids. We're doing something right. Let's just keep it the way it is and don't allow there to be changes. On the other end, you have a lot of doctors and parents, and as you see, HHS going, all right, there's something wrong. Our kids are obese. Autism is on the rise. We have chronic disease on the rise. Maybe we do need to reevaluate, and maybe not every child needs the COVID vaccine at 6 months old. In fact, the HHS is looking at a few things. They're looking at the MMR vaccine. The MMR vaccine has been a very controversial one, with the previous use of thimerosal and mercury, with people alleging that the MMR was causing autism or autism-like side effects. And so the MMR has kept coming back up in terms of a probably one of the less popular vaccines. A lot of parents are pretty happy with the polio vaccine, but the MMR, they're like, they're very nervous about the MMR because of all the anecdotal reports and media attention with the MMR. And so there have been a lot of parents that have asked me, why can't I just wait till my child speaks, till I know my child has developed, potty training skills and communication skills? Why can't I just give them the MMR vaccine once I know that they're out of that, shall we say, period of time when we don't know if they have a neurodevelopmental issue or disorder? Well, we doctors can't suggest to delay, because if a young infant does get measles, and we have had infants that have died of measles, we can't recommend then not vaccinating. But parents are demanding that doctors have some cojones and help them make a decision, because it's a very, very difficult and scary decision when parents are concerned about the multitude of vaccines, the frequency, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year. The choreography of the vaccine schedule is pretty amazing, but it's overwhelming for a lot of parents. And doctors are seeing what I'm seeing, where parents are ripping their kids out of school, saying, you know what, I'm just going to homeschool so I get to avoid all vaccines. And I had predicted this with the COVID vaccine mandate. You try to push the COVID vaccine on kids before parents are convinced, they might say, you know what, I'm done with all vaccines. And I support vaccines. I want our children not to be at risk for polio and MMR and all that. But I do understand that parents are getting freaked out. So we have a current administration that is very frustrated with the high autism rates, with the high obesity rates, with the chronic disease rates. And so they want to challenge and reevaluate, are we doing the right thing? Do all infants at 1 day old need to start their hepatitis series? Do all healthy infants at 6 months old need a COVID vaccine? Do all pregnant women need to be taking Tylenol, or, should they be cautioned of the risks? And so you have a lot of doctors saying it's about time somebody is looking at this and going, okay, well, now that the dust settled with COVID, let's reevaluate. But you also have a lot of doctors in the form of doctor groups saying, no, let's go back to what it was pre-RFK Jr. taking over HHS, and let's just, leave well enough alone and do what we've done up until now. And so I'm wondering if, because this is not, we're not going to progress to the degree we need to when we have so many different schools of thought of how we should move forward, and we have a lot of distrust out there of what needs to be recommended. Many people have asked me, what are the pharmaceutical company relationships with the government, with doctor groups, with, are a lot of these doctor groups, having sponsors who are pharmaceutical companies, so they want to be pro? Is Donald Trump mad at Johnson & Johnson, so he's anti-Tylenol? And unfortunately, we need to get all our medicines and all our vaccines from pharmaceutical companies. So yes, it is interweaved. And so to try to filter out if there's any secondary gain from either side is not a simple task. I like to be of the belief that every single decision that is being made is for the utmost health and protection of the child. But I'm talking to doctors, and you see the more liberal-leaning ones saying, well, I hate RFK Jr., and you see the right-leaning ones going, why aren't we reevaluating? That's what we do in science. And so we kind of have this disconnect. And I don't want to see vaccines go by the wayside, but I also don't want to see any more parents rip their kids out of school because they just don't trust the whole system and they think there's too many vaccines. And so we're going to continue to make more vaccines for more infectious disease, because if we can prevent an infectious disease and we can save a kid's life, we're going to want to do that. I'm really glad we have a COVID vaccine. I think the COVID vaccine did save lives. But does that mean everybody has to get it? The other issue that a lot of doctors are concerned about, but again, doctors are mixed on, is what do we do in terms of resources? If Medicaid dollars are starting to become far and few between, do we need to reevaluate, why are healthy individuals who could work still getting Medicaid dollars? If we don't have enough COVID vaccines or certain vaccines, or we don't have enough money to pay for them, should we make sure those who are high risk and vulnerable have access to it? One issue we're seeing right now that doctors had to step in on is the weight loss drugs, that were originally used for diabetes, Ozempic and Mounjaro. Those with diabetes couldn't get the drugs. And we doctors had to step in going, look, this idea that everybody should get it is hurting the vulnerable populations. And we need to make sure that vulnerable populations have access to the Medicaid dollars, the Medicare dollars, the COVID vaccine if they need to. On the flip side, though, when you have individuals who can't get the vaccine, we're trying to have herd immunity where we end up protecting the individuals who can't get the vaccine by ensuring other people around them are vaccinated to deflect the infectious disease. So it's complicated. Doctors are mixed, and I don't think we're going to have a lot of, shall we say, clarity until we, are able to get politics and lobbyists out of the way. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we frequently talk about atrial fibrillation because cases are on the rise. The Lancet reported that between 2010 and 2019, the prevalence of atrial fibrillation worldwide went from 33.5 million to 59 million individuals worldwide. In terms of the United States, one study says that it is estimated to affect 4.48% of the adult population, men more than women. If you remember a few years ago, J.J. Watt had to miss one of the games when he was playing for the Cardinals because of having atrial fibrillation. So I am really excited about our next guest. Dr. Deidre Clark is going to speak about atrial fibrillation. Dr. Clark is a board-certified physician with the American Board of Internal Medicine, general cardiology, clinical cardiac electrophysiology, and as a member of the American College of Cardiology. Dr. Clark, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning to you, and thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Wow, and your expertise in electrophysiology is fascinating because, as you know, with atrial fibrillation, and you'll explain to our listeners, you're studying the heart and studying the electrical conduction of it is paramount to understanding its health and its longevity. So talk to us about atrial fibrillation and how common it is.
Yes. So atrial fibrillation is a cardiac arrhythmia in which the upper chamber of the heart, which normally beats at rest typically 60 to 90 beats per minute, will spontaneously start beating 300 to 500 beats per minute. Very sporadically, very chaotically. It is the most common arrhythmia in the United States, as you alluded to, and it's the most common arrhythmia in the world. It's estimated over 10 million people in the United States have atrial fibrillation, and that number is expected to climb over the next decade upwards by 32%. 1 in 4 adults over the age of 40 will be impacted or have atrial fibrillation impact them at some point in their lifetime.
And we're seeing a lot of younger individuals, whether it's their caffeine use or we're seeing a lot of new cases in younger individuals. And unfortunately, atrial fibrillation could lead to stroke, cardiac arrest. Talk to us about why it's so important to diagnose and catch this early.
Well, the reason why it's so important is really twofold. Atrial fibrillation is a progressive disease, which means if left untreated, some of the symptoms affiliated with atrial fibrillation, such as fatigue, dizziness, lightheadedness, shortness of breath, I get fatigued when I exert myself. I have the sensation of anxiety that can occur spontaneously. And sometimes for some patients, just the overall sensation that I'm just, quote unquote, slowing down. Those things will become entrenched the longer AFib goes untreated and undetected. There's also more clinical conditions that are even as, or if not more severe. Untreated atrial fibrillation has a 5 times greater risk of causing heart failure. It has a 2.4 times higher risk for stroke, and it has a 2 times higher risk for sudden cardiac death as well. So early detection and treatment is critical at preventing some of these things.
Dr. Clark, I'm so grateful for all the treatments that now we have available to treat this, especially catching it early. Talk to us about those treatments.
So typically when patients are first diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, they're put on medications. You alluded to stroke earlier, so sometimes patients are put on a blood thinner to protect them from stroke. And there's other medications that are either designed to control their rate or to help them stay in rhythm. Those are called antiarrhythmics. However, there are some patients who either cannot tolerate those medications, or those medications are associated with side effects, or in spite of being on those medications, there's a progression of the disease. For those patients, catheter ablation is a very viable option. What a catheter ablation is, it is a safe, minimally invasive procedure, oftentimes performed as an outpatient basis with the patient. And the procedure, the nature of the procedure is designed to isolate the abnormal electrical triggers that are triggering AFib from the normal conduction system of the heart. And when done and performed, it allows the normal conduction system of the heart to then drive and helps to restore and maintain rhythm.
You know, it's what we're able to do now, you know, in terms of saving lives and preventing the sequelae of it is amazing. You know, what more would you like to share with my listeners?
Well, 2 things. Fundamentally, that atrial fibrillation has a wide array of symptoms, and that is important for all of us that we listen to our bodies and be an advocate for ourselves. Johnson & Johnson is providing comprehensive patient resources that patients can look these things up and have the literature at their fingertips. There's a website called Get Smart About AFib. That's all one word, GetSmartAboutAFib.com, in which patients can not only go on that website and get information, but also see if they are candidate for catheter ablation and can be put in touch with an electrophysiologist like myself to determine if they have additional treatment options, which could and can include catheter ablation.
GetSmartAboutAFib.com. Dr. Deidre Clark, we are so grateful for you coming on. We can't wait to have you back.
I appreciate it, ma'am, and I look forward to it.
Anytime. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've had patients call in, you know, the telemedicine company I work for, saying their heart is pounding or their Apple Watch has trouble logging in the numbers and locking in their pulse because it's so high, or they're feeling dizzy. When you have this abnormal heart rhythm where you could be possibly beating at 300 beats a minute, or rather than going the ba-boom, ba-boom, because of the electrical and the abnormal electrical discharge, it's boop, ba-doop, boop, 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 your heart is not able to pump a good pump. I mean, the way your heart pumps is so rhythmic. It's an amazingly engineered organ. I tell you, I bring that up because my son, who's an engineer, says one of the most fascinating engineered entities in nature is the human body. And the blood, you know, coming from the body into the right atrium, the right ventricle, being pumped into the lungs to be oxygenated, coming back from the lungs in the left atrium down to the left ventricle to be pumped throughout the body, is a system that just cannot be disrupted. And if the electrical current is, and if you have a dysrhythmia or arrhythmia, it can cause severe issues with the way your heart can function. If your heart doesn't function, your body can't function. You know, going into heart failure is unfortunately something that is difficult to reverse when you don't have the elasticity and the plasticity and the good pumping action of your heart. And so your SA node gauges the rate of the impulses based on your activity. And so if you're exercising and need more cardiac output, your SA node, your sinoatrial node in the right atrium of the heart, triggers a faster pulse, so oxygenated blood could be delivered throughout the body quickly. The electrical activity travels to both chambers of the heart, both upper chambers, the atria, and then down to the AV node, and then down to the septum between the lower chambers of the heart or the ventricles. And so your pump needs the electrical impulses to work. In atrial fibrillation, the SA node doesn't seem to be in charge anymore, and the electrical impulses misfire throughout the atria, the upper chambers. You get this fibrillation of the heart muscle. It loses its normal heartbeat, beats erratically. You start to feel dizzy, shortness of breath, fatigued, and it's something that needs to be addressed immediately. If your heart pump cannot fill adequately and pump blood, you don't get the oxygen to the body. Plus, if your heart is causing the blood to slosh around because it's not pumping out, the blood starts to solidify and clot. This is why people are at risk for blood clots when they have atrial fibrillation. So definitely check out that website, GetSmartAboutAFib.com, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. You know, we've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So yesterday we heard that hundreds of General Services Administration employees who were fired by DOGE earlier in the year are being asked to return to work because the GSA, which manages federal buildings and property leases, I guess, is understaffed. We are being told by Forbes that the rehired employees at GSA were given until the end of the week to accept or decline reinstatement. And if they're going to come back to work, they're needed by October 6th. This is being reported by the Associated Press as well. Now, DOGE reduced staffing at the agency headquarters by 79%, cut 65% of portfolio managers and 35% of facilities managers, according to an unnamed federal official. Hundreds of federal leases for multiple government agencies canceled by Musk's agency have been rolled back. And so the GSA is one of the latest of the agencies to bring back employees that DOJ cut following rehirings at the IRS, Labor Department, and the National Park Service. Now, this was something that I was a little concerned about. As much as I agree with the fact that we need to stop waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, and boy, have I seen it myself, even working for the government, I did not like the indiscriminate firings. That the way that was done, I had a big problem with, especially since originally they offered people a deal, which I thought I actually liked. All right, listen, you need to come back to the office. None of this working at home anymore. We're done with that. Come back to the office. If you don't want to, you get a severance or you get to stay on the payroll till September, which was pretty nice and generous. The problem I had is if you didn't take that deal by the deadline, you would think your job would be safe because you want to come to work, you want to be on site, you didn't want to quit. But then individuals after that deal got fired. Individuals that supported DOJ, that supported return to office, ended up starting to get fired. And then it made people think, well, wait a second, the next time we get a deal, I guess I better take it because I don't trust the government and I don't trust that I'll be able to have a job. And it was very, very unsettling. And so we thought that it was going to be more precise. They were looking at people that might have had, probationary issues from discipline, et cetera. But instead, it was newly hired. If you're under a year, you could be at risk. And if it's a government agency, which we feel is overstaffed, we're going to fire. Well, unfortunately, and I understand this is exactly how private industry works, where, well, what we're going to do is we're going to fire, and then when we need to hire more, we hire more. And they just go back and forth. Whereas the government, once you have a job, you seem to be having a job for life. And I understand that Trump and DOJ wanted to, and Elon Musk wanted to change that thinking. So yesterday we heard that some of these agencies are rehiring because they need staff. Now we're being told that if we have a government shutdown, the White House is going to ask federal agencies to consider firing some of their workers. It was a memo from President Trump's Office of Management and Budget directing executive branch agencies to use this opportunity to consider reduction in force notices, RIFs, adding that the possible permanent cuts would be in areas not consistent with the president's priorities, unquote, according to Yahoo Finance. So we thought that there was a lull in terms of the mass firings, but if there is going to be a government shutdown, that might be another opportunity for them to do reduction in forces. They say the plan this time around could be for the government to send certain workers home and then eventually reopen, but only retain the minimum number of employees necessary to carry out statutory functions. So whenever there is a government shutdown, people are furloughed. And I think at the time they don't get paid, but then as soon as the government reopens a day or two later, everybody gets back pay. But this could be a little bit different because if you lose your job, then that's when your pay ends. And so the agencies are being instructed to complete revised shutdown plans in the coming days before a possible government funding lapse on October 1. I'm really sick of this whole government funding renewal and then shutdowns. It seems like every year we are dealing with this. And yeah, the Republicans and the Democrats go back and forth, and everybody tries to use the shutdown to then take advantage of getting legislative deals. And this is just about the funding of the government. Now, I do understand that you don't want to have funding that doesn't sunset like we had with Obamacare and Medicaid saying, well, we're in a recession, so let's just expand Medicaid and leave it expanded. You do want to make sure that there's some structure to the spending. So I get that. But it just seems like every year, all right, the government's going to shut down again. The government's going to shut down again. Then people are going to be out of jobs. And usually the essential functions persist, but remain open. But other things that might not be as essential get cut. But, Doge was supposed to sunset July 4th. And Elon Musk went back to work because he has companies. He has SpaceX, Tesla. He had to rescue astronauts that were stranded because Biden wouldn't ask him to help during his administration. So, Elon Musk had work to do. And in fact, now Tesla stock has been rising because he's back there, when the cat's away, the mouse is out to play. So he went back and he got his companies back in order. But I really wish the Department of Government Efficiency is something that could persist. Not so that they continue to do indiscriminate firing, but in terms of looking at where there's waste, fraud, and abuse and stamping it out. It's actually something that bipartisanly most people would agree with. I don't think there's any voter that wants to think their tax dollars are being squandered and wasted. And I really wish that Doge would say, look, you guys get a refund of tax dollars we didn't use. Or if we saved money and we found that this was going to be a waste, you get a percentage of it back. And I know the idea was floated where it was like a one-time check. I think even if it's $50 or $75, people getting money back from Doge's work keep them engaged. And I think in terms of government agencies or academia or any of these places where, when it's time for budget renewal, they say, well, if you don't spend it, you lose it. So spend. I think you should incentivize all employees where if you are under budget and you save us money, you get a percentage bonus. And you're going to see people steal less whiteout, steal less Post-it notes. Maybe try to save money, order fewer things, or order fewer furniture items. I mean, right now it's spend, or we lose the budget. But if you really want to save money, say, look, this is our budget. But if you stay under budget, and we won't lower the budget, but if you stay under budget, the percentage that you saved us, you get a percentage back. I think that's going to be huge. Not to mention, people will be less likely to quit. If they think they're going to get that bonus, they're going to be less likely to say, you know what, I don't want to work. I want to work from home. I don't want to go back to work. I think it could be really helpful in terms of efficiency. So I hope that, we don't have another government shutdown. I hope we don't lose federal workers who really work and really want to be there at their job. But if we do have individuals who are just sitting there, watching the clock, messing around, we need to be more efficient with our tax dollars. 1-877-DOC-BELLY. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.